Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. The Season 2 Reloaded update changed a few things around when it comes to the overall Warzone meta, and today we are breaking down the new top 10 best loadouts to be running in Warzone in general. And we're starting here first with one that is incredibly reliable that I'm sure plenty of people are familiar with by now. We've got the ISO Hemlock and we've got the MP5 together here. Real quick before we go through and break down the individual weapon setups, I want to go through the perks and equipment because this really stays the same on every single one of my loadouts. So for equipment here, smokes in this game, super clutch, whether it's for trying to use it as cover if you're rotating through an open area, whether it's to try and get a sneaky revive off, whatever the case may be. They're a really clutch tactical. I've been running these lately. I love them. Semtex is also great. Throwing knives are good for insta finishes, but just for nade purposes, for, you know, pushing campers out of a certain spot or whatever the case may be, great option there. For my perk package here, again, this stays the same on pretty much every single loadout. I'll go ahead and hide the face cam real quick so you guys can see. We are running Overkill and Double Time for perk 1, so the sort of mashup there with the two options. I like Resupply for perk 2, and then personally Quick Fix for me is my go-to for perk 3. That said, there are some really good other options in perk 3, like for instance High Alert, which I know a lot of players run as well. So if you'd rather get that notification ping for someone looking at you, that's a great choice as well. But Quick Fix in those situations where you're in a hectic spot and you get that insta finish off and you're able to regen your health because of that, that can really save your life when it comes to, you know, staying up in general. You know, that extra health might be able to save you to the point where you can get out of the building and, you know, heal up or win that secondary gunfight because they weren't expecting you to have full health. So like I said, that's the same for all class setups. Now we can just focus on the weapons for all 10 loadouts. So like I said, Hemlock and MP5 on this first loadout here. Keep in mind, you can mix and match pretty much everything as we're going through the list today. And while I'm recommending you the setups that I think personally work the best, especially for how I play and what I go about doing in game, there's not a lot of one size fits all when it comes to the meta right now. You can change out a few things here and there. I'll try and point that out as we get to those parts of any given gun, but Hemlock surprisingly wasn't touched. It was the best rifle before Season 2 Reloaded, wasn't touched. It's still the best rifle afterwards. The MP5 actually caught some slight movement nerfs and a control buff, but it's still one of the top tier SMGs right now in terms of TTK and what you're able to do with it in general. So great setup here for close, medium, and long range. Hemlock setup not really changing all that much. Currently still running the AMOP V4. We're tuning for that furthest eye position and slightly faster ADS. The 45 round mag, of course, is a must-have, largest magazine option in this case. High velocity rounds, also clutch for mid to long range fights, just going to make it feel more consistent, and we're tuning for the better velocity and damage range on that. I do still run the Edge 47 underbarrel. This was actually buffed, as were all the underbarrels, kind of to really reduce the ADS cons and the movement cons that they offer. So a lot of the underbarrels now are going to be really effective. In this case, we're just tuning for the better stability and stabilization to make this super easy to shoot. And then I do go for the Sakin Tread 40 still, just for the most recoil control. This thing's going to be very easy to shoot, very straightforward. We're tuning for the gun kick control and stabilization here. That said, we've talked about the best suppressors in the past, so if you'd rather run one of them and stay off the compass, of course, Echoless 80 in this case would be a top tier choice. You know, depending on the gun, some of the suppressors will be different, but like I said, we've covered the best options for all guns in the past. Feel free to go check that out if you want some more clarity there, but you certainly have some options for the muzzle in this case. But either way, this setup in particular, very easy to use, arguably the easiest to use in the rifle category, gonna hit hard, especially over range. Then for the close range aspect of this, the MP5, despite the movement nerfs, is still going to be very aggressive, very good up close, and this setup sort of makes it even more aggressive in certain cases. So first up here, TCG-10 rear grip for better control. Then I tune for the inverse of better ADS and sprint to fire, so we're kind of getting a little bit of everything out of this one attachment. I go for the 40 round extended mag. 50 is a little bit too slow, but if you're okay with that, you could always run that too. 7 milliwatt laser, better ADS and sprint to fire. We're tuning to maximize that. The Falcon barrel in this case will be great for movement, and this is really going to counteract the nerf that it just got. Right here, I go ahead and I tune for the faster ADS and a little bit of recoil steadiness just to keep things consistent. And then lastly, I go for the lock grip precision. This is going to be great for hip fire, also going to be minimal when it comes to that you know, speed reduction and ADS reduction now because the update. And I tune for the better movement here, better ADS speed, better hip walking speed as well. So this setup is still going to be nice and aggressive and really going to feel great up close for any you know, SMG type fights, it's going to be a top tier option. Loadout 2, another great combination here. We've got the Scar, we've got the Vaznev. Vaznev, because of some of the changes to things like the MP5, really going to inadvertently rise up in this case and be even more competitive than before. And the Scar, the TAC 56 was not touched, so just like the Hemlock, it remains a top tier rifle, super low recoil and very easy to use. Here we're going all out iron sight. I love the feel of this setup in particular, reminds me of the OG Scar from MW2. I got the combat grip, rear grip on here for better control, tuning for the better steadiness and stability, just going to be easy to shoot. 40 round extended mag or 60, again, if you're okay with being a little bit slower, 60 is totally fine, but I find 40 to be pretty sufficient. We got the high velocity ammo on here yet again, no surprise, better velocity, better damage range. Edge 47 underbarrel as well for the better stabilization, tuning to enhance that even more. And then in this case, I do go for the Echoless 80. This is going to help out a lot with the range and the velocity, obviously keep you hidden off the compass. I tune for that slightly better velocity and a little bit better ADS on there as well. So this one will be a laser beam, just like the Hemlock. Really depends on which one of these you like the feel of more, because both are going to be very, very good. Then for the Vaznev, this setup really hasn't changed in a bit here, but now because of some of the changes again to the underbarrels and whatnot, this is going to be a tad bit more aggressive. So rear grip, true tack, better ADS and sprint to fire, once more tuning to maximize those. I've got the R7 stock on here as well. This is for a better sprint speed and a better ADS speed. The crouch movement speed is cool, but like that's not really a main focus. That's a nice added benefit though, for sure. I tune for slightly better stability here just for some consistency, then also the better ADS speed. Of course, another Olay laser on here, the 7 milliwatt laser equivalent, better ADS speed, better sprint to fire speed, tuning to maximize those. I do use the Cast 1 barrel, which is meant for damage range because the damage drop off on the Vaznev here is kind of quick, so this just makes it a little bit more reliable in some of those mid-range fights. And I tuned basically to get some better mobility back out of this, because this is going to slow you down some. Then lastly, I go for the shark fin underbarrel. You got plenty of options here. If you wanted to use one of the vertical ones for like the hip fire and whatnot, you know, lock grip precision would be good. Tango is another really good one as well. You could also use the X10 drop grip, so feel free to mess around with those as you want. But here we're tuning basically just for better mobility, and we don't really have any cons here, so it's kind of just free stats, if you will. It's not a bad look whatsoever. So Vaznev, absolutely still a top tier close range option. Now setup 3, kind of a new one because of some of the elements here. The M4 is still rocking, still feeling really good, but now we've got the Bas-P. This was buffed with Season 2 Reloaded. It was kind of on the verge of being an alright SMG, but the buff here is going to make it even more aggressive, and it absolutely can hold its own now in the SMG category in specific. So M4 setup here, not too much is changing since the last time we talked about it. Still running the AMOT V4 for the side position in the faster ADS on the tunes there. 45 round mag, same spiel. 60 is totally fine as well. It's just going to be a little bit slower, so keep that in mind. High velocity ammo, better velocity, better damage range on the tunes there. Edge 47 underbarrel, yet again, we got the better stability and better stabilization on those tunes. And I also go for the Echoless 80, pretty much the best suppressor option whenever it's available, so that's why I'm always running that. Better velocity, better ADS on the tunes here. This is all the reliable, very easy to shoot, pretty good TTK, especially for some of the mid-range and some long range as well. Works great as your primary. And then the Bas-P, however you want to pronounce it, really aggressive SMG here. And this is kind of a unique setup because I am sort of testing out some of the newly buffed attachments here. In this case, I don't feel like you need a muzzle or a barrel. You're either going to have a slow barrel that helps with damage range and velocity, or a fast barrel that's going to hurt your control and whatnot. So I don't really opt for those. If you want to test them out, feel free to do so. But this setup is going to be easy to shoot, and most importantly, super fast. So 7 milliwatt laser, better ADS and sprint to fire, tunes to enhance that. I don't like the iron sights, and frankly, if you do, then yeah, throw on an underbarrel X10 drop shark fin. You can mess around with a suppressor or a compensator or a barrel if you want, but the iron sights feel a little bit clunky to me, so I go for the blue dot for the side position, faster ADS on there. Bruin flash rear grip, better ADS and sprint to fire. Once more, we're tuning to maximize that. 50 round drum, your basic extended mag in this case. And then the overpressured rounds actually got buffed in the sense that they no longer actually have a huge recoil penalty, so that's really clutch. They're going to give your target more flinch, and flinch got increased with this last update too. So if you're landing shots with this thing, the enemies might have a really hard time actually staying on target against you, and that can win you a lot of gunfights. I do tune for the better velocity and range in this case, so definitely a unique SMG setup on an SMG that we haven't talked much about, but definitely feeling good after the update. As we move on into this next setup, quick reminder, if you are new to the channel, every single day I got you covered with all things going on in COD, and around 52% of viewers watching are not already subs. So if that's you and you want to stay up to date with news, updates, loadouts, tips, everything like that, feel free to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. And if you guys enjoy the video or if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it as well. Let's try and aim for 2,000 likes on this one. So this next setup consists of the RAAL and the P90, one of my new favorite SMGs. Now, the RAAL did see a lot of nerfs with Season 2 Reloaded. Recoil nerf, long range nerf. So it's still a good LMG. It's still a powerhouse. It's going to fry if you can land your shots. It's just not going to be as good as it was before, but absolutely still a top tier option and in the meta conversation. And frankly, with the changes that they implemented, I don't really change my setup around all that much, especially because they hurt the control so much. I feel like you really got to focus on a lot of control here, quite frankly. So I go for the AMOT V4 standard stuff here, furthest eye position, faster ADS speed. Stip 40 rear grip for better control. We're tuning to maximize that essentially. Dune underbarrels for better steadiness, which is basically just general recoil control. Tuning to maximize the stabilization and the stability here. The Shred CP90 muzzle is for better control all around, and I'm tuning to maximize that yet again. Then the Rhino barrel gives you better control and slightly better velocity as well, and I'm tuning for the better range and steadiness in this case. So this setup is like the lowest recoil build you can have at the moment. That said, if you want something with high velocity on it, because obviously this is for mid to long range, I'd mess around with either dropping the underbarrel or the rear grip and trading out one of those for high velocity and seeing which build you prefer more if you want to focus on that to make it a bit more consistent. But for low recoil, this is the go-to. Then for the P90, same setup that we talked about a bit ago. This thing is flying and frying now. Its mobility speed is phenomenal. This setup really highlights that. Also has one of the best TTKs for the SMGs right now. So I got the Q900 rear grip, better ADS and sprint to fire, tunes to mimic that. Behind the face cam here, I've got the TV Tacom comb. This is going to be for better ADS and sprint to fire as well. Once more, tunes to match that. I don't like the optics too much here, and I don't really like the rail dot either, so I do go for the Chrono Mini Pro optic. If you prefer the iron sights here or you prefer the rail, feel free to go for that. This is just my preference. Furthest eye position, faster ADS, no surprises on the tunes there. 7 milliwatt laser yet again, tunes to enhance that sprint to fire and ADS to really make it as fast as possible. And then for some stabilization here, some control, I go for the KT85 muzzle. I tune for the better control and better stabilization here. That'll just make it super easy to shoot, especially even in the mid range. This thing's gonna have you just dropping enemies back to back to back, and they're not gonna know where you're coming from because you can move around so easily with this thing. Another setup that I am loving right now is the MP7, which actually caught a buff, which is super exciting. Then also the Sakin. This got a slight nerf, but it's still so easy to use. It's absolutely in the meta conversation. Very low recoil. It's still an LMG, so its damage is going to be pretty consistent over range. MP7 though, man, this thing is feeling good right now. It's fast. It's got a great TTK just like the P90, and this setup really highlights it in a lot of areas. So I go for the Soldier rear grip. This is better ADS and sprint to fire. Per usual, you know the drill. We're tuning to maximize those. RXT stock, better sprint to fire ADS speed, the bonus of crouch movement speed, better stability for some consistency there, and some better ADS speed on those tunes. 7 milliwatt laser, same deal as always with the tunage here. I do go for the drop grip in this case. Now, if you wanted to, you could always trade out the drop grip for maybe the 50 round mags if you wanted to, overpressured ammo, and optic if you're not a fan of the iron sights, but this is just some added stability here, some added hip fire accuracy, and you can tune for some better mobility there. So like, why not, right? Then again, I go for the Lockshot KT85, minimizes any potential horizontal bounce, making it super consistent, super easy to shoot, better ADS speed and gun kick control on those tunes. This is one of the more straightforward SMGs, and it's low risk and very high reward at the moment. Then the Sakin setup, not much really changing here, just like over on the RAAL. If you wanted to use high velocity, again, feel free to drop either the underbarrel or the rear grip and see what you're the most comfortable with, but I do use AMOT V4, standard stuff here for the tuning. The G305 rear grip is for better control, better stability and steadiness on the tunes for that. You don't need an extended mag, obviously. Like I said, if you want high velo, feel free to swap out one of these for that. Edge 47, perfect for the stabilization as always, better stability and stabilization on those tunes. Sakin Tread 40 muzzle, or if you want to run one of the suppressors, feel free to do so per usual. Gun kick control and stabilization is what we're targeting with those tunes. Then for the barrel here, I do like the Silver Series a lot. Better velocity, which is clutch, better range, which is clutch, better control, which is clutch. This also will help sort of counteract some of the nerfs that it got with Season 2 Reloaded. Better range and steadiness on the tunes there, so still a very reliable, very consistent LMG. After that, we've got kind of an interesting setup, I won't lie. This is one of my more experimental ones. We've got the M13, which is really good over mid to long range, but it's still kind of awkward in the close to mid range because its damage is kind of iffy there and becomes better over time. And then the Broadside, you might be saying, oh, it caught so many nerfs. They weren't enough. It's still very good, and frankly, it's the same setup as before. It's just not going to be as good as before, but if you're close range, it's still a fire shotgun with 25 rounds. It's still going to be ridiculously good. I hate promoting it, but I can't deny the fact that that nerf was not enough. So we got the stockless stock on here for the mobility, true tack, rear grip, ADS, and sprint to fire tuning to maximize those. 25 round drum, Dragon's Breath still for the better velocity and damage range on the tunes there. Then I also go for the Gunner D20 barrel. This is for better range, better velocity. I tune for the better aim walking speed and damage range there. Not a fun weapon to die to, and frankly, I'm kind of sick of using it and singing in lobbies, but it's still in the meta conversation for sure. Then the M13, this setup is just about consistency over mid to long range, really. You don't actually need an underbarrel here, in my opinion, because it's so easy to use. This is a very low recoil gun, so I go for AMOP V4, furthest eye position, faster ADS on those tunes. 60 round mag, the fire rate here really makes the 60 round a must have, in my opinion. High velocity for the consistency, better velocity and range on those tunes. I like the Echelon barrel here more than I like an underbarrel, just because you're going to get a bit more out of this in general areas rather than just one area in specific, right? So range, velocity, control, it's all super solid, better steadiness and range for those tunes. And then I go for the Echoless 80 yet again. No surprises here. You could go for recoil smoothness. You could go down for ADS if you wanted to. Then the better velocity as well. Really consistent gun. Not like the fastest killing rifle by any means, but it's easy to use and has decent damage, so it's going to feel reliable. Now, of course, with Season 2 Reloaded, we got a brand new weapon, and I always make sure to feature those in any of our top 10s coming out. So on this setup, we got the Tempus Torrent, and this is obviously meant for mid to long range. So to counter that for close range, I go for the Chimera, aka the Honey Badger. My favorite close range option in terms of rifles, and these really work well together because the Tempus Torrent takes sniper ammo, this takes rifle ammo. You're not doubling up there like we have in certain situations in the past. Honey Badger setup for Chimera setup not really changing all that much, quite frankly, although it is going to be more aggressive now because of some of the changes made to speed up some of the attachments. So Ruin Flash rear grip, better ADS and sprint to fire. I do tune for the better steadiness to keep some consistency and the better sprint to fire as well. 45 round mag, Edge 47 underbarrel if you want some consistency for like the mid range, if you're using this as sniper support, or if you find yourself in that situation, this will make it a little bit more consistent and reliable there. I do tune for the mobility, however. Also, for what it's worth, if you wanted to drop that and throw in like a laser or something, you could do that as well, and it could work pretty well. Sakin Tread 40 for my compensator here, again, just to keep it super consistent over the mid range if I'm using it there. Gun kick control and stabilization on those tunes. Then lastly, I love the Vorpal barrel because you're getting movement and range all in one, which is super nice. I tune for the better range and steadiness in this case, so this is going to be great for any close to mid-range fights you have. It's going to fry, like its TTK is really good there. Then the Tempus Torrent, we just talked about this setup the other day in our Tempus Torrent specific video. This is really consistent for the mid to long range. You just got to make sure that you're able to track and trace enemies consistently because it's semi-auto. You have to land your shots for this to be a competent weapon, right? So I like the Schlager 3.4 times in this instance. I go for furthest eye position, faster ADS on the tunes, no surprise there. 30 round Extended works well. If you wanted to go for 50, it's going to be super slow, but that's a lot of sniper ammo and you don't really have to worry about reloading all that often. Edge 47 for the stability is clutch on marksman rifles, better stability, better stabilization on those tunes. Polar Fire S suppressor is a really good choice in this case. No Echoless 80, so this will suffice for sure. Better velocity, faster ADS on those tunes. Then I like the Outreach barrel. This is going to be the best for range and velocity, going to make it feel really consistent over long range. Better range, better steadiness for those tunes there. Definitely not the easiest weapon to use, but it's pretty good for being a DMR replica, basically. Next setup is all about the Kastov family tree, if you will. I've got the 7.62, which has seen some nerfs, but it's still a really solid rifle with great damage. Then I got the 74U up close. Now, we are sharing rifle ammo here, so keep that in mind if you want to run these two together. You might have to run a munitions box or stock up on ammo, but this has got all ranges covered. Close to mid-range and mid to long range is going to be really good here. The 74U, just like the Chimera, is going to fry up close. This setup is all about mobility. R7 stock, tuning for the better mobility in this case because you're just going to enhance that even more. Demo X2 grip is meant for control. I tune for the inverse here so we can get everything out of this, but this will keep it nice and consistent. 45 round mag, pretty standard there. Olay laser, better ADS and sprint to fire, tunes to match that. Then the 209 barrel is all about movement, which is clutch here, so we can speed things up. I do go for a bit of steadiness to keep it consistent and some better ADS speed to keep that nice and snappy, so a really good, really aggressive close range choice here. And then the 7.62, we're just basically building for control over long range, right? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. AMOP V4 for this eye position, faster ADS. 40 round mag, largest option here, so we kind of got to go for that. High velocity for the long range consistency, better velocity and damage range. Edge 47 for the stability once more, better stability and stabilization. Then also the Polar Fire S in this case as well, better ADS, slightly better velocity on the tunes there. You can't really go wrong with either of these guns, and like I said, if you want to mix and match these with some other setups, both of them would work well. Another pretty fun setup here, the MX9, which actually got a slight buff with Season 2 Reloaded, and then the RPK got some slight nerfs, but still a pretty good option, especially for long range. And I wanted to make sure I didn't like double up on any weapons. I wanted to give you guys as many options as possible, and frankly, the RPK is still feeling pretty good. Now, MX9, very fast, small magazine is what really holds it back here. Otherwise, it could be a top tier choice, but as it stands, I mean, it's still very good. Obviously, it's in our top 10 loadout video, but 32 round mag is a must-have here. Q900 rear grip, better ADS and Sprint-to-Fire, tunes to match that. Behind the face cam, I've got the C11 riser for better ADS and Sprint-to-Fire. I've got the better ADS, then the slightly better stabilization here for some consistency. I hate the iron sights on the AUG, so I go for the blue dot here for this eye position, faster ADS. Then I got the S901 barrel, which is better range, but also better movement. So that's a nice little 2-in-1 there. And I tune for better mobility in this case, just to keep it nice and aggressive, since after all, this is an SMG. Then for the RPK, same setup that we've been running for a while here, especially now because of some of the nerfs. You have to have high velocity on there. They did nerf some of that with the Season 2 Reloaded update, so this will get that back. Tuning for the better velocity and damage range in that case. X2 rear grip for better control, tuning to maximize that. AMOP V4, same tunes as always there. And then Edge 47, better control, better stability here. Gonna keep it nice and consistent over range. And frankly, Sakin Shred 40 is going to work well if you want it to be low recoil. If you want it to be consistent over long range, especially after the velocity nerf, Polar Fire S would be a good choice as well. Same tunes either way, regardless of which one you want to choose. Better control, better stabilization, or as we saw in the other Polar Fire options, the better ADS and better velocity tunes. Either or will work well, just depends on how exactly you want the weapon to feel. Then lastly here, this is my sort of mess around, get me out of that dire situation class setup. I've got the ISO Hemlock, same setup as before, so no need to run through that again. Then I do have the Fennec. It's just you know, a decent SMG now. The nerfs really did take it away from being that absolute #1 to more of just being like a middle of the pack SMG. Not bad by any means, and something you can still use if you're nice and familiar with it. I do like the mobility stats on this still. That's what is really driving me towards using this in some situations over some other ones, but P90 still works well, MP7 still works well, so if you want this as like sort of your regain go-to automatic class, feel free to run those as well. But rubber rear grip, better ADS and Sprint-to-Fire. I go for the Sprint-to-Fire and slightly better steadiness again for the consistency here. I've got the Loctite stock, better mobility. I tune for the better stability and aim walking steadiness, but if you wanted to do the inverse, all for mobility, feel free to do so. Both work well, right? 45 round mag, must have. 7mm laser, ADS and Sprint-to-Fire, tuning to maximize that. And lastly, Lockshot KT85 once more for the better stability, better stabilization. Gonna make it nice and easy to shoot because there is some bounce here even in the close range. But overall, we got a lot of very solid, very reliable, very consistent setups here, and a lot to choose from, quite frankly. So you can't really go wrong with any of these. That said, that is going to wrap things up for today, though. Those are the top 10 best loadouts to be running in Warzone 2 right now. If you guys enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. That way you can always stay up to date. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.